let's go ahead and get into the game as we are on the Shadow Temple.
All right, so kicking us off here in the bottom left, we have HayprO from Team Liquid. Do you know why his name is HayprO? Because I thought it was for Hater for a long time, but
Hater is his real name.
Hater is his real name. That's why when people kept saying Hater.
I'm not sure why it's HayprO, honestly. I should know this because I've known him ever since.
Played with him for so long, right?
Yeah, StarCraft Brood War, so.
Well, he is up against this person in top right, Nightend from Team Fnatic. Nightend, he's been training really hard, but he's kind of still been under the radar. A lot of people still underestimate him and his capabilities. But you also are familiar with Nightend. What is this kind of style, especially in PvZ?
He's pretty passive. He has the ability to do a couple of all-ins, but as we saw in his matches against Zenio, I feel like his all-ins are kind of, you know, weird. He doesn't have great follow-up afterwards, which is a lot of times very difficult for players to do because the situations are always different. You have to see how much damage did I do, what do I need necessary, what is my opponent capable of, and a lot of times it's very difficult to actually find out what that is, what the answers to all those questions are. So I think overall, if Nightend plays a very safe, reserved style, he'll be much better against HayprO, who is also a pretty safe and macro-oriented player, but he is changing up, getting a pretty fast spawning pool right here. Let's go and look at it. It is only 16 harvesters out in the field. How come this looks so tiny?
I mean, the thing about Shadow Temples, though, is if you block the natural, you know, on maps like Daybreak and Teague, it's like, well, you know, I'll just go take a third. Except in this location, it's really hard for HayprO to take another auxiliary expansion. It would have to be in the top center. So this definitely throws quite a bit of wrench into things, but nonetheless, HayprO, he knows what to expect. Shadow Temple has been around for so long. And, you know, ZVP on this map, we've seen a couple games. The Idra Alicia game comes to mind. And, yeah, we've seen a lot of Protosses. You know, they could go for aggression off 2 baits, but it's also really easy to break the rocks and turtle, especially based off the cross-spawn positions. Yeah.
You know, Zergs also know it's a little bit difficult to get your third base. Now, right now it does look like Liquid HayprO is chipping away at these destructible debris over here. But another style that his teammate actually does is take a third over here. And that is Zenio, I should say. Okay. And what Zenio does is he goes Roach Hydra off of 3 base, but he semi-saturates the third base. He actually only goes up to around 40, 50 drones, around there, normally high 40s, low 50s. And then he just starts producing and pumping off of that. And he starts to be aggressive. And what the theory is I'm not going to play defensive in this game. I'm going to be all-out aggression, and that way the location of the expansions don't really matter. And as I start to develop later into the game, hopefully I can connect my creep a little bit better. I can get the 4th base inside between the 2 expansions, and I'm A-okay. So that's definitely a style that we've seen before. I don't know if HayprO is going to employ that, but we'll definitely keep an eye on him right now as he has just transferred a lot of drones over.
Yep, and a lot of people may be wondering, you know, what is anything changed in Shadow Temple? Maybe this is the first time you're watching this season. We have made a couple changes, most notably the rocks at the third. There is no gold minerals there. In fact, it's still 6 patches, but just regular blue minerals. And also the armor on the rocks have been reduced, giving HayprO a lot easier time in terms of shutting it down. The probe tries to run up the ramp, but doesn't actually see anything of value. So at this point, pretty standard ZVP right now. HayprO does have some good information on his opponent, seeing gas timings.
Yes. He sees right now at this point the 3rd gas time. He doesn't know if a 4th is up yet, but this is kind of an early 3rd gas. Normally you are not expecting some sort of +1 weapons, you know, 4-gate timing, just because you're going to delay it so much. Also the chrono boosts and their allocation. That's a very important thing to note when you are playing against Protoss, because a lot of times the chrono boost actually tells you what your opponent is capable of as well. So he sees all this chrono boost being allocated towards the Nexi. He shouldn't really be worried about any form of aggression, and he should start just droning up like crazy.
Yeah, a couple of things really show lack of aggression. First of all, there's no, I mean, +1 usually is getting chrono boosted as one of the first things that 100 gas is spent on. We see Nightend's actually doing it much more passively, getting robotics. And the fact that HayprO doesn't see many follow-up gates either. In fact, his Robo is incredibly fast. It's off the first 100 gas that Nightend's really been able to capitalize after warp gates and sentries. And so now HayprO gets all the information, but with warp gates this delayed, HayprO has some pretty good time to react here.
This is actually the exact build I do all the time.
Really? You do one gate robo? Really
I do one gate robo. I think it's a very strong way to actually proceed on. It's very safe and standard. The one big thing that actually throws a wrench in this build is going to be Zergling, Baneling drops. And the main reason for that is you prepare for these roaches. That's something that, you know, a lot of players do expect. It's the roaches, and you're really efficient against them because you have these super fast immortal count. But with the Zergling Banelings, you're really able to bust, and you're able to kill off the sentries to stop your opponent from doing aggression. And of course, immortals don't do great damage against Zerglings. So it's going to be up to HayprO at this point to actually realize what his opponent is doing and then act from that. I feel like going just roaches actually leads directly into this fast robo build, and it gives Nightend just the perfect opportunity to do whatever he wants. He can take expansions as he wants to, and he can also just macro up and, or excuse me, not macro, and do pressure as he wants.
Well, HayprO's got 60 drones, and he's getting +1 as well as roach speed with a 4th hatchery on the way, so he's lining up everything for a huge three
they are
base
brooches,
roach.
man. They are brooches. Well, actually, he's actually being really defensive with this. You can see the roaches and Zerglings on the top here. That's to defend against some sort of War Prison play. That's become very common these days, but looks like he will go down to the bottom ground. I don't know what he suspects at this point. HayprO can't really put his opponent on anything because he hasn't gone in with any of these overlords. I think that's the #1 thing that you always do.
Well, I mean, he does have some pretty good information. Seeing like 4-gate robo transition is very normal. You can expect Immortal Sentry with some kind of upgrades afterwards. You can see Blink and +2, and this is a good time for HayprO to move in. But the problem is he doesn't have that much advantage in terms of pressuring a third base. Normally you see Zerg's able to really shut down any option for the third base to go up. And based off these positions, look at that. There's just this incredible amount of layers that HayprO has to really chew through before he can get to the third base.
Yep, and there's no way that HayprO can actually do anything about this with just ground. He needs some sort of mobility via muta, via drops. And it's really difficult for him to actually move around the map and be cost efficient with these. As you can see, the roaches are trying to do damage against these cannons, but I really don't think it will be too fruitful. This gives Nightend all the time in the world to actually react, and oh no, HayprO! Okay, he could have been force shielded out of that, and that would have been catastrophic, but another roach swarm comes into the natural.
Oh, very, very nice. Nightend was a little bit sloppy with his unit control, putting everything in one hotkey. It's very tempting to do that, but no real damage being dealt just yet. HayprO's still macroing pretty decently, getting his base in the top center of the map, trying to see if he can establish just his map presence and just transition out of these roach aggression, but he still needs to keep on the pressure, otherwise Nightend will just continue to macro up units and eventually gets too high of a stalker count. You can see Nightend at this point just really corner boosting out his immortals. Blink did finish, which gives Nightend a pretty good defensive ability.
Yeah.
And there's 5 immortals out with a 6th about to pop out. HayprO should not be able to break this anytime soon.
No, he will not be able to at all. All it takes is one really good force field. And I really felt like Nightend should have traded there. Just kill all the roaches. Immortals are just surprisingly strong against roaches.
Surprisingly strong.
Well, I don't mean like attacking them, but more so just defending against them. I mean, you can actually segment off a ton of those roaches and just have the trades. You know, have the stalkers and immortals trade out, and then after that, you have really great timing with your opponent. Has to commit all of those minerals and gas towards more units. And this is normally a phase where they like to transition into, whether it be hydras, and what is going on with my mind? I just said hydras, mutas, or infestors, something like that. The trades at this point in time are actually really good for Protoss, and it kind of is a lot worse for Zerg.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen Zerg's players try muta transition to really punish for overabundance of immortals. You can see 6 immortals take up 24 supply, which is a significant amount of the army. That's 1/4 of the army alone. And HayprO is maxed on Roach Ling at this point. You can see 40 Zerglings are in production right now, as well as double Evo chamber upgrades. Now the big thing is that those upgrades are very behind. HayprO does have +2 on his missiles, but if he's going to start switching over to Zerglings and whatnot, they don't have that much carapace upgrades, which means the Stalkers will be able to 3-shot them instead of 4.
This is a really weird transition. I don't know why he kept going in with these roaches, but here we go, the big blink in. And oh my gosh. I think HayprO can't stop this.
Well,
this is just too
he's
many
getting
immortals.
5 infestors, and they should have pathogen glands finished by that time. HayprO doesn't have as much creep as you would like at this point in the center of the map to try to see if he can get surrounds and hold it off. But HayprO at this point isn't in the worst position. He does have his 4th base, doesn't have his gases number 7 and 8 just yet, but he's racking up an incredible amount of minerals at this point because he's getting pure infestors. So you can see that HayprO really needs to just start pumping out units that are cost efficient against this Stalker Mortal Ball, and Roaches is not.
No, I mean, here's the thing. If Nightend was 40 supply, you know, less, then maybe HayprO has a chance. But with these 6 Immortals and just the sheer amount of units, I don't think any amount of infestors well, I shouldn't say any, but the amount of infestors at this point will be enough.
Well,
Nightend just has to engage right here, and he's golden.
He's got a few here, and we can see that the infestors do latch onto a couple of the Stalkers in front. Force Field is desperately trying to hold off the units, but look at these Immortals just go to town on all of these roaches. You can see that the army from HayprO is getting very thinned out. Now keep in mind, there are a lot of Stalkers down for Nightend, but the big thing is that his Immortals are untouched. They still have their hardened shields up, and that is going to be very, very devastating for HayprO to face in the upcoming minutes.
And HayprO has no reply to this. I don't see any army composition that can actually deal with this mass amount of units. I mean, the upgrades are too good at this point, but here we go. Another engagement starts up. There are a ton of Zerglings, but the ball is already huge. Yeah. And look at that. I mean, instantly, it's water on rock, man.
Yeah. And, I mean, Nightend is just going to blink forward. And you didn't even have the micro, just sat back there. Didn't even really force field at all. Just getting the position is good enough as that upgrade advantage 3. It's +3 to just +1 carapace is really kicking in as these Stalkers will eliminate those Zerglings incredibly quickly. Nightend feeling a little bit cautious at this point, doesn't want to press him too far because he's not sure what HayprO has. But the truth is, HayprO is looking very, very vulnerable at this point. He's only got infestors and 44 Zerglings. I was going to say, where's all his roaches? But he has none.
I like what he did there because a lot of times you don't see a ton of gas in your opponent's supply, so you're saying, okay, well, I have to be careful against Zergling infestors, which actually counters his composition pretty nicely. So I like where Nightend is. He's just playing it super safe, but at this point, I mean, HayprO, look at him, 133 supply. He just doesn't have the means to do anything. Yes, he has expansions galore. He took the top middle and the top left-hand position. But now HayprO, oh, I like this. He's actually going to try to do a couple of counterattacks here to buy himself a little bit of time until his Greater Spire comes up, and he's able to get Broodlords out in the field.
Yeah, but I mean, Stalkers still 3-shot the Zerglings, which is just way too fast for them to really do anything. And Nightend, he was biding his time for his Colossus to really finish up, and that's just going to be the nail in the coffin, I think, unless HayprO can get out some kind of answer to the Colossus directly, because it's just going to devastate his army. You can see Nightend moving towards the southern half of the map, which I like. Now trying to go in the open area to really close it off. And look at how many Stalkers he's got. The massive blink forward to try to eliminate, and this could look like the final waning moments unless HayprO can get a miracle engagement.
Well, I don't even think a miracle engagement would help. He needs inactivity from his opponent, but this blink is going to be the end of HayprO. He has no response to this ball. I mean, Nightend is playing this perfectly. Another blink coming up here and taking out so many infestors. Great play by Nightend, and this is going to be the nail in the coffin, Frodan. There's no conceivable way for HayprO to win it.
Every single infestor got cleaned up, and we see 6 more Broodlords, and without infestors, Broodlords are incredibly vulnerable to the onslaught of Stalkers. Nightend moving in here onto the third base of HayprO. In fact, he might strike before the Broodlords even pop, which is guaranteed victory. As you can see, look at that GG from Nightend there, as he does take game number 1.
Nightend takes a very seamless win. Congratulations to him. He played it very well. Yes. But I have to say, you know, there's a couple of things, because your opponent doesn't know exactly that you're going Immortals. And that's the purpose of the Overlord scouting, and especially with the buff that they got, there's no reason why you shouldn't stick with that. But what you need to do is really look and see if your opponent is going for something like Immortals, or if they're switching over to Robotics Bay, which is the Colossus. That's the main thing you have to worry about. Now, Zergling Baneling is very effective, but if they get quick 3 Colossus, you're in a really tough position because all your upgrades are invested into the +1 melee, +1 carapace. It gets very dicey at that point because pushes are so strong. But if you would have seen that there was no Robotics Bay and Immortals were only being pumped there, Zergling Baneling is the choice. That's just what you do in that position. I think Roaches are just too tough to go to, and they won't really do any damage against a defensive, I guess, macro-style Protest that's trying to take their third base.
So HayprO drops game number 1 on Shattered Temple, but he has map choice. We want to thank Epson, the people who made that game responsible. Check them out at epson.com. Don't go anywhere. More action from Division number 1 here in Week 6 of NASL Season 3 is coming up right after this.